this is my West US AVS environment, and then I have another one on the EMEA side. As you will notice, the EMEA side is 10.30, whereas the US side was 10.29 subnets. Okay, just make it a little bit easier to identify where we are. I've already logged into my US vCenter, and you can see the virtual machines which are sitting in here, 2, 8, and 10. These are the ones we're going to use in our protection groups. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, the VM is happy. Okay. Next thing, I just want to do a quick show and tell. Let me get out of some of these tabs. Too much going on here. And I'm going to take you to Hybrid Cloud Extension, which is again running in my US AVS SDDC. Since we are doing application level protection, I mentioned earlier using HCX for network extension. So this is the network, VMnet USAW with my initial here, which I have extended between my US SDDC and my EMEA SDDC. Okay, so this is the base level setup which already has been done. So next I'm going to log into Site Recovery Manager on the US side. So just, okay, here we go. So the first panel shows us the engines running on the US side. It gives us the version, the vSphere application, and Site Recovery Manager. Next thing I'm going to do is open the Site Recovery Manager. AVS currently supports one-to-one pairing only. And here we have set up the pairing between US and EMEA already. Okay, so I'm going to go into the detail panel. As you can see, this is between West US and West Europe. Okay, and both the Site Recovery Managers have been paired between the two locations, and the vSphere application engine also has been paired between the two locations. To take a step back for a moment, deployment of Site Recovery Manager in AVS, which is a managed service, is just a click of a button. Just to show you how to do that, which we have already done in this demo. Basically, I'm back on the West US AVS Azure portal. You would go into add-ons, and then you would go into disaster recovery tab, and here you have an option to install. You do need to get Cloud DR license key from VMware to make it active. But initially, the day you're deploying, you could very well deploy it with the temporary license key, which comes with it. Okay, so switching back to my Site Recovery Manager, just to show you a little bit about the layout. On the first panel, we have all the site pair and the base level inventory mappings between the two locations. The next station will let us define which all VMs we want to replicate between the two locations, and then group them into various logical protection groups, which can then be fed into recovery plans. And this is where we'll actually do the DR test, DR migration, and DR recovery. A lot of that function will happen between the replication tab and the recovery. Okay, show you a little bit more about how I have mapped between the two locations. So from network mapping point of view, as I mentioned earlier, I have a segment in US data center, this VMnet, which has already been extended, and I'm using that as my recovery network. I have created an isolated test network on the recovery location in the EMEA SDDC, which I will use when I'm doing DR testing. And then some of the additional things like, hey, create a similar folder between the two locations, resources between the two locations. I've done reverse mapping here for all of my functions because this gives me the flexibility to protect my applications from each direction if I need to. So with SRM, you can run applications in production in both locations and cross-protect them if needed. Again, with HCX network extension, it makes it relatively very easy to set up communication between the two application sets. Okay. Next, I have already replicated one VM, and it's part of a protection group. Now, as you saw in the drawing earlier, we had 3-tier applications. So I'm going to go ahead and set up replication for the other 2 VMs also. So I'm going to let it pick the right server. I'm going to go find my VMs. And so 8 and 10 is what I want to protect next. Oh, there's an error here, but so I'm going to pick my vSAN data store. I'm going to set it to 10. Oh, okay. We can do per VMDK configuration also. Right now, each VM has one disk, so I'm just going to protect the whole at the VM level. In this panel, we can set the RPO value. So I'm going to set these up at 4-hour level. There are additional items which I can configure. I can do point in time. And if needed, you can have multiple copies saved up on the EMEA side, and on recovery time, we can pick which one we want to pick. In any case, I'm going to leave everything as default. Add to an existing group for some reason. Okay, let me do not add it right now. It's not showing me my default protection group, so I'll update that later. So I'm going to go ahead and finish. So as you can see, the protection has been started. And we'll start seeing these VMs show up here. Let me wait and see if this gets started. I'm going to reload this page. So as you can see, both VM 8 and 10 are in progress. Earlier, as we saw in the output, that VM number 10 was not in the right resource pool, and that was causing an error. So I went ahead and migrated the VM under the resource pool so that Site Recovery Manager can find this. The reason it was looking in that specific location is because the way I have set up resource pairing, these are not at the cluster level, but rather at the containers I have created. So the VM have to be in the same location resource-wise, so that the vSphere application engine can find it. While I'm here, just to show you a few things, this is the view from the West US side, And if I want to look at the view from the West Europe side of things, I just need to tab from the other location, and then it gives us the reverse mapping. Okay, I'll leave it at that and go in and check to see how it's progressing. The initial sync is going on. If you want to see more detail, just hover over this eye and you will see these numbers move up as we go along. At this stage, I'm going to pause my recording and we'll come back after it's done. So the 2 VMs which we protected has finished the initial sync. Their status is okay. You can see additional details, your RPO configuration. You can see the last sync duration and so forth. So there's a lot of good information you can gather from this panel. As you can see, our earlier VM is part of this protection group. So I'm going to go and add 08 and 10 also to the same protection group. To do that, I'm going to go into my protection group here, click on my group and hit edit. I'm going to keep the same name and select the 2 new VMs which we started protecting to this protection group and hit finish. Okay. So this should be fairly quick. We can go back and make sure, okay, these VMs have been added. Protection group looks in a good state now. As you can see, all 3 VMs are in there. We can click here to see the details and all the information about this protection group, how the folders are paired up, how the resources are paired up, networks are paired up, all of that is visible here. I'm gonna go and check my recovery plan. Looks like it is also in a good state, okay? So that completes our initial first function of protecting our application with a specific RPO value, okay?